Ever feel like you're stuck? Like life's got you pinned down.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe it's a career slump, a personal setback,
Yeah.
grief over a loss.
It happens.
It's easy to feel powerless when, circumstances just seem totally beyond our control.
Right.
But what if I told you the key to navigating these tough spots is often our mindset?
It's true.
Like how we're thinking about things.
Yeah.
That's what we're diving into in this deep dive.
It's really interesting stuff.
Looking at how to cultivate mental strength, especially when things get tough. And our guide for this deep dive is Amy Morin and her book, 13 Things Mentally Strong People Don't Do.
This is a great book, and it's surprisingly common to kind of get caught up in what's been taken from us, instead of what we can still do.
Right, like focusing on the negative.
Yeah, and Morin dives headfirst into this in the book. She calls it the tendency to dwell in self-pity.
To wallow.
Yeah, and she speaks from experience, which makes it all the more powerful.
Right. Morin's own life has been marked by, incredible hardship. I mean, she lost her mother suddenly.
Awful.
And then became a widow at just 26.
So young.
It's hard to even imagine.
It really is. And those experiences, along with her work as a therapist, they really inform the book's core message, which is this. We can choose mental strength even when life throws its worst at us.
Even when it feels impossible.
Yeah.
Like, how do you even begin to do that?
Well, she tells this one story about a young boy named Jack.
Oh.
And it really brings this home.
Okay.
Jack was hit by a school bus.
Oh, wow. That's awful.
Yeah, truly awful experience.
Yeah.
And it was a long road to recovery, broken bones, the whole 9 yards.
The whole thing.
You'd expect his parents to be, totally focused on his healing route.
Of course.
But here's where things take an interesting turn.
Okay. I'm intrigued.
Their constant pity.
Oh.
Their talk of how his life was ruined, it actually started to harm his recovery. The therapist realized that Jack was internalizing that victimhood.
Wow.
Instead of empowering him, all that pity, all that focus on what had been taken from him, it was holding him back.
So instead of focusing on what happened to him, they changed the approach.
Exactly. They shifted their entire perspective.
How so?
It wasn't poor Jack anymore. He became Jack, the boy who beat a school bus.
Oh, wow.
They emphasized his strength, his resilience, his will to recover.
Yeah.
And that subtle shift in language, that change in the narrative, it made all the difference.
Wow, that's powerful. Just changing the story can change the outcome.
It can. And this is one of Morin's key insights. It's not about denying the pain or pretending everything is perfect, right?
Right.
It's about finding the silver linings, no matter how small, and actively choosing to focus on those.
Choosing where you put your attention.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Have you ever tried keeping a gratitude journal?
I have, yeah. It's one of those things that, sometimes it's hard to come up with stuff.
Right.
But it really does, it makes you look at things differently when you're forced to find those good things.
It's so simple, but it really works.
It does.
And, this reminds me of the incredible story of Officer Stephen McDonald. He was an NYPD officer who was paralyzed in the line of duty.
Oh, wow.
Most people would completely understand if he harbored anger, resentment toward the person who did this to him.
Of course.
But he chose to forgive the teenager who shot him.
That is incredible. To go through something so horrific and come out the other side with forgiveness.
Yeah.
That takes immense strength.
It really does. And it highlights an important concept Morin talks about, which is locus of control.
Okay.
We have two choices, right? Internal, where we focus on what we can control.
Okay.
Or external, where we're fixated on what we can't.
The things that are outside of our control.
Exactly. And it's not about being able to control every single event in our lives. It's just not possible. It's about recognizing what is within our control. Our reactions, our choices, how we choose to see things.
So instead of dwelling on the things we can't change, we shift our energy to.
Exactly. To how we respond, what we can learn, how we choose to grow from those experiences.
So, for example, if you're dealing with a frustrating coworker.
Oh, yeah.
You can't change how they act.
Right.
But you can control how you react.
Absolutely. You choose how to set boundaries, how to communicate, and even how you let their actions affect you. That's where our real power lies.
Makes sense. But honestly, that's easier said than done, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Especially when it comes to other people.
Oh, tell me about it.
There's always this pressure to please everyone, even if it means like putting our own needs on the back burner.
Right. You end up sacrificing yourself.
It's exhausting.
Right. It really is.
Trying to be everything to everyone.
And Morin actually, she tells this very relatable story about a woman named Megan in the book. And Megan was juggling, like a part-time job, kids, volunteering, you name it, she was doing it.
Wow, the classic overcommitter.
Yeah. And she was completely burned out, totally fried from trying to do it all and please everyone.
Yeah, I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Oh, totally.
That feeling of being constantly stretched thin, trying to make everyone happy.
And you know what's at the root of all that people-pleasing?
What?
Fear.
Fear.
Fear of conflict, fear of rejection, fear of being seen as selfish.
Right.
But here's the thing, right?
Yeah.
Constantly bending over backwards to avoid those feelings, it takes a real toll.
On you.
Yeah. On your well-being, your mental health, your relationships, everything.
So how do you break free from that cycle?
Good question.
Because it's easy to say, just say no.
Right.
But it's not always so easy in practice.
It's not. And this is where Morin's advice, it gets super practical.
Okay, good. Because I know our listeners, they want, like, actionable stuff.
Exactly. So she talks about this idea of identifying our core value.
Our values, okay.
Like what truly matters to us at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And once we're clear on those values, they become our guiding force.
Okay.
Especially when it comes to saying no.
So instead of being a yes person to everyone, you're prioritizing what aligns with your values, the things that are most important to you.
And, you know, this might mean having some difficult conversations.
Right.
Potentially disappointing others, yeah.
Sure.
But ultimately, it's about living a life that's true to yourself.
Yeah. And, you know, sometimes not pleasing everyone can actually lead to greater success.
It sounds counterintuitive, doesn't it?
Totally.
Mm.
But now that Miriam mentioned the founder of Craigslist in the book.
Yeah.
Who famously refused to clutter the site up with a bunch of ads and stuff.
Right.
And everyone told him it was a bad business move.
But he stuck to his vision, you know, to what he believed was valuable.
And it worked.
And that's what made Craigslist such a phenomenon. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes saying no is the key to unlocking something truly great.
It's about trusting your gut and not being afraid to forge your own path, even if it's not the popular path.
100%. And, you know, Morin connects this idea of staying true to ourselves with another big fear we often face, which is fear of change.
Oh, yeah.
Big one.
Even when you know change is good, it's still scary.
It's so true, right? It's funny how even when we know logically that change is for the best, that leap into the unknown, it can be terrifying.
It can be really scary.
Absolutely. And, you know, this is where Morin's own story becomes even more inspiring, I think.
Okay, how so?
Because after losing her husband so young, you know, it would have been so understandable if she just retreated, shut down.
Of course.
But instead, she chose to embrace the change, you know, even change that was rooted in grief.
And she's not the only one. I mean, there are so many stories of people turning tragedy into something positive.
So many, yeah.
There's this amazing story of Mary Deming.
Oh, yeah, Mary Deming.
And she lost her mother to breast cancer.
Awful.
At a young age.
Way too young.
And she took that experience and she created Seymour Pink.
Wow, yeah.
Which is a whole community movement, raising money for breast cancer research, supporting families who are battling the disease.
It's incredible.
It's incredible how a personal loss can spark that kind of, like, positive change.
It's amazing. And that's what Morin emphasizes, right? Change is a process. It's not a single event.
Okay.
She talks about this man named Richard who really struggled to reach his health goals.
Okay.
He wanted to lose weight, eat better, exercise, you know, the whole 9 yards.
The whole thing.
But he kept getting overwhelmed and giving up.
Oh, I've been there.
Yeah.
It's so easy to get discouraged when you don't see results right away.
It is. We try to do too much at once.
Yeah.
We try to change everything at once and it backfires.
Yep.
And Morin's advice for Richard, and really for all of us, is, you know, start small.
Small changes.
Focus on one step at a time.
Okay.
Build a support system.
Yeah, so better.
And then celebrate those small wins along the way.
Because those small wins add up. Small steps. I like that.
Yeah.
It takes the pressure off.
For sure.
It reminds me of something else Morin talks about that I think a lot of people struggle with.
What's that?
Failure.
Ah, yeah.
What if, instead of viewing it as this big, scary thing, we looked at it as information?
Ooh,
you know,
like that.
Like a learning experience.
Totally.
And that's really the heart of Morin's message about, you know, not being afraid to try again.
Right.
And she tells this great story about Roland Macy.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, the department store.
Macy's.
Macy's. Believe it or not, he had a whole string of failed businesses
Oh, really?
before he ever achieved success with Macy's.
Wow. I did not know that.
I know. The guy who built a retail empire was a serial failure,
Ah.
which is, I don't know, it's kind of inspiring.
It is inspiring. No.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, it didn't stop him.
Exactly.
Mm.
And those early experiences, I mean, they were crucial, you know?
Yeah.
Each failure taught him something.
Right.
It helped him kind of hone his instincts, figure out what worked,
Right.
talk about a growth mindset in action.
Exactly. So instead of letting those setbacks, you know, hold us back,
Mm-hmm.
or worse, like keep us from even trying again,
Yeah, you get too scared.
we can actually use them to our advantage.
Totally.
So how do we do that?
Well, Morin actually, she gives us some really practical advice on this. She suggests we analyze our mistakes.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
And she gives us these questions to ask ourselves.
Okay. Like what?
Like, okay, what went wrong?
Okay.
Could I have done something differently?
Okay.
What did this experience teach me? So you're really taking that step back. Reflecting.
Yeah.
Instead of just going, oh, I'm a failure. Right, exactly. It's like Thomas Edison famously said, I haven't failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work.
Right. Exactly.
But it's so easy to get stuck in that feeling of like, I messed up.
It is, especially, you know,
Especially today.
in today's world.
Because we're constantly bombarded with everyone else's highlight reels.
Oh my gosh. It's
On
like
social media.
on social media.
The worst.
It's hard not to feel inadequate sometimes when you're like scrolling. You're like, oh, everybody's killing it but me.
It's so true. And Morin talks about this directly, how envy and resentment, they can really chip away at our mental strength.
Oh, yeah. They can eat you up inside.
Totally.
Yeah.
And to illustrate this, she shares this amazing story about Wilma Rudolph,
Okay.
who not only overcame childhood polio, but also racial prejudice to become an Olympic champion.
Wow. Now, that is an incredible story of overcoming adversity.
It's amazing, right?
Talk about inspired. And, you know, the takeaway for me from that story is this. Focus on your effort,
Okay.
on your personal journey.
Your own lane.
Exactly. Rather than getting, you know, sidetracked by what others are doing, what others are achieving, it's about running your own race.
Don't compare your beginning to someone else's middle, right?
100%. Love that.
Yeah.
And that actually leads to this really thought-provoking question that Morin, she poses.
Okay, what's that?
Are you competing in the wrong race?
Ooh, interesting.
Right. Like, are you chasing goals that truly matter to you?
Okay.
Or are you trying to live up to someone else's expectations?
It's a good question. What does matter to us?
Right.
And sometimes I think figuring that out, it requires a little quiet,
Yes.
a little time to yourself.
A little solitude.
Yes.
And that might be why Morin actually dedicates a whole chapter to this, to the power of solitude.
Interesting.
It sounds counterintuitive.
It does.
Right.
Because we're like in a constantly connected world.
Exactly. But taking time for ourselves, even if it's just a few minutes each day, can have a huge impact.
It's true. I mean, we're so used to being plugged in 24/7.
All the time.
But honestly, that can be really overwhelming.
Totally.
Sometimes you just need to unplug and recharge.
100%. And Morin makes this really clear distinction in the book that I think is so important.
Okay.
Loneliness.
Yeah.
That's negative.
Okay.
Solitude is a choice.
Okay.
It's something we choose to connect with ourselves.
To reflect, to recharge.
Exactly.
Okay. And there's actually research that backs that up,
There is.
saying that solitude can boost your focus.
Yeah, your creativity.
Wow.
Even your physical health.
That's amazing. Okay. So how do we actually incorporate this
Yeah.
solitude into our busy lives?
Right.
Because it's easy to say, oh, take time for yourself.
Yeah.
But with work, family, and everything else,
Looking for your attention.
it can feel impossible to actually do it.
It can, but you know what? It's about starting small.
Okay.
Maybe it's taking a walk without your phone,
Okay.
turning off notifications for an hour,
Okay.
or even just enjoying a cup of coffee in silence before everyone else wakes up.
I like that.
You know? Little moments.
Yeah.
They can make a big difference.
I love that. And, you know, it kind of speaks to this idea of delaying gratification too,
Oh, yeah.
which, you know, in a world of instant everything,
Everything now.
that could be a hard one.
It can. Think about it.
I know.
Fast food.
Yep.
online shopping, on-demand entertainment.
Everything.
Everything is designed for instant gratification.
I want it, and I want it now.
Exactly. But Morin argues, and I think she's right, that learning to delay gratification to work towards those long-term goals, crucial for building mental strength.
It's about like building that muscle.
Totally.
Of like, I can wait for the things that I want.
Exactly. And it's not easy, but she illustrates this point with a pretty unbelievable story, actually.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
Something about the inventor of the Dyson vacuum cleaner.
Oh, right.
James Dyson. Okay, get this. He spent 15 years and created over 5,000 prototypes.
No way.
Before his design took off.
Wow.
15 years of trial and error, setbacks, probably a whole lot of self-doubt.
I would imagine.
Right. But he stuck with it. And that's the point.
That is the point.
True success, it rarely happens overnight.
Rarely. It takes time. It takes resilience.
It does.
And it takes that willingness to keep going, even when you can't see the finish line.
100%. So, Morin challenges us, and I think this is a good challenge, to identify one area where we can practice delaying gratification.
Okay, just one.
For a week. Just 1 week.
Go.
It could be as simple as resisting those tempting notifications,
okay,
delaying that online purchase, or even sticking with a new workout routine even when you don't see those immediate results.
Right. It's about like proving to yourself that you have the power.
Yes.
To resist those instant rewards.
Exactly.
So in a world that's obsessed with speed, instant gratification, getting what you want when you want it, maybe the real key to unlocking our potential lies in slowing down.
Yeah, I love that.
Giving ourselves permission to reflect.
Yeah.
To embrace the long game.
The long game.
That's what I'm taking away from this deep dive into Amy Morin's 13 Things Mentally Strong People Don't Do.
Such a good book. So many good takeaways.
So good. Really makes you think about like how you're approaching, challenges.
For sure. And the good news is we all have the capacity for mental strength.
We all do.
It's about cultivating it, one choice at a time.
And that's something we can all work towards. This has been such a fascinating conversation. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.